G'day everyone, welcome back to the shed. And wow, have you got here at the best time for what I'm doing here. I've just been fitting our number plate recess into the tailgate. So I've spent pretty much the morning, although I did sleep in a little bit, fitting it in there. So I've made a few cardboard templates off the tailgate, trimmed this up a little bit, and then transferred those measurements over to our little recess tray here. And it wriggles in and it comes out again, and it's not bad. It's almost at the point where I think I'm going to get it in there lined up, get a couple of tacks on this edge, and then we'll start working it around and get it to fit. But looking at the shape of it, the size of it, you're never going to get an absolute 100% perfect fit everywhere. But I would say we're going to be down to within a millimetre of where we need to be everywhere. So we can work with that. We can actually get our weld to cover that and work all right. But what I'm doing at the moment is pretty cool. I'm putting these openings in for the number plate lights. Now the original GMH ones are a little bit offset to where the bolt holes, if you have a look. So you've got one number plate bolt hole there and one there. So I've copied that exactly from the original car. So the relationship of the lights to the number plate has stayed the same. I've also put these little square holes in here, and that's so I can put a little plastic insert there for a little self-tapping screw to screw through and hold the license plate on, so that's going to work. But what I'm doing now is I'm just making this little bump on the back here for the number plate light to clip into, and it's just so super cool how it works, so I had to share that with you guys. It always comes back to my favourite little steel bench. It's so versatile. So today what I've done is I've just cut a little scrap of offcut and I've shaped it to almost the same shape that GMH used, and I'll say almost, it's sort of within the ballpark. I've lined it up so it's square on the table here, and I've spotted it to the table, and when I put the piece on the end here, push it up tight, I can clamp my piece of material down and I can work this shape into it, and I get that nice little divot like that. So we're going to just bash the other one in now, and then I've got to make another little former to do the one that goes on the other end, because it's a little bit shorter and more oval on the ends, but you'll get the idea from this. So if we just clamp this down here, just going to use basically the wedge peen end of this hammer, and I'm going to put it down next to where it wants to be, tap it with the other hammer, and that's going to distort the piece of metal around the former. It is a hammer form, pretty simple, pretty crude, but gee, it's working well. Don't need to hit my sheet like there's no tomorrow, it's just tapping it down into place. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I reckon that's pretty damn nice. So when we take our little light, this one's already broken, it's lost a little leg there, I'll have to get another one to go in there. But it actually hooks in from this side into that spot there, and then the little legs clips up in here like that. But this end here has got to be pushed down again to take this slop out of it, like that. So that's what we'll do next, is make that. Just try it in the other hole, it hasn't been in this one yet, so look at that, that clips in there nice. So once we put our little bump like that down here, that'll be a perfect fit, and it'll just look like Holden put it in there from factory. Also at this stage, I'm going to put a little bracket just off the top of here, and that's going to wind up being inside the tailgate, but I'll just put a hole through it, and with the latch removed from inside the tailgate, I can actually get through and put a cable tie around that and hold the license plate light wires up so that they won't fall down into the mechanism that actually works the tailgate latch, and that'll keep that all nice and safe. So from here, I'm going to make that one there, get him finished off, clean up all the back side of this, give it a good grind up and clean up, and I'll give it a good paint tonight, and we'll let that cure over tonight. And tomorrow, if you guys want to rock back again, we'll get into it and get it welded into the tailgate. So looking forward to that. Hi guys, we're back here again. It's not actually tomorrow, it's the day after, if you can work all that out. Yesterday I got this, no, yesterday I did not get this ready. The day before yesterday I got this ready to go in and put a bit of paint on the back of it just to preserve it a little bit so we wouldn't have any rust issues. Naturally we're going to have an issue around the edges where we welded in there, but we'll get a rust treatment in through the latch opening on the inside of the tailgate, and we should be able to get that treated up well enough. But it's above any moisture line that would get into the tailgate and actually sit at the bottom and need to drain out and things like that. So I don't think we're really going to have a problem. This car has a hard lid on it all the time, so it seals up moisture wise pretty well. So we can only do what we can do. Bit of rust preservative on there, let it flow around, capillary and suck in and things like that. We'll have it pretty good anyway. So we've finished off the little number plate recess pieces, and I made the little divot to go on the opposite end down there. The only mistake I made in the whole thing was I cut the opening to size before I actually shaped it, and that spread the ends out a little bit. So I put a little bit of weld on that edge there and on the other one over there, and then that's corrected that. The little lights actually clip in their retreat, and I made this end much the same as I'd made this one here on the little anvil, but I made a different shape former for that piece in there, so that's good. This little bracket here, I'll put a cable tie through that and tie the wires to it. I've got two options here. The way it is, we could just bend it over from behind and capture the wires under this section in here, and that would work as well. I've got this fitting into the tailgate pretty well. It's not 100%, but when you look at the size of this, the full perimeter around there, we've got curves in every direction. Getting it 100% is a tall ask. So I've got a few little spots where there's gaps and bits and pieces. So we're going to have to be digging into our bag of tricks and just working some spots as we go. These corners need a little bit different radius on them as we go, but what my plan is to centre it up. And this little scratch line here is the centre of the tailgate. And I've got a pencil line in the new piece that's the centre. So the plan is to tuck it inside, butt this bottom edge up against the lip in here. So we're going to tuck our new piece in there, line up the centre, pull it up, and see if we can get it touching in a few spots here, get a few tacks in there. That's going to contain it in there. I can use the holes for the number plate lights, and I can pull up the top, and the same thing here, we can get a tack or two in there. From there we're going to have to do fine tuning work as we go, getting this edge to line up with this edge here. Same thing down the bottom. I've had to drop this line a little bit this morning, and I did it with a hammer form. I put a piece of flat bar inside, another piece on the outside, 3 clamps on there. I worked out I wanted it 2 millimeters lower, so what I did was I put a 2 millimeter piece of metal on its edge between the piece of flat bar and the existing edge there, clamped it so that it was held this way against my piece of scrap material, and then either side of that I brought these ends down 2 millimeters, took the piece out, and then used the previously formed end on each end to clamp the piece of flat bar at the back to, and then I was able to dress the inside, or the middle section down to line up all the way through. So that's all good, all pretty simple things. I've welded up the holes in up here for the lion, where we'd put the bolt through to pull this shape up into here. So that's all done. So I think we can just about poke him in there and see what's going to happen. So it's going to be one of those jobs where we've just got to fiddle around with a bit, little bit by little bit, get it sitting nice, get a few tacks in there, get it sitting nice, a few tacks, and then once we've got it tacked all the way around, we can start looking at welding a few little pieces as we go. So, suitable visual aids, and we will line, that line says it wants to line up with that line, and we might need a bit of hot glue. And we're going to be looking for spots that we can join it. So this is where it's going to get tricky, because it's going to want to move for a while until I get a tack or two in. This is going to be tricky, guys. Whose idea was this anyway? Oh, now that's sitting pretty much where we want it, just in there. So I'm thinking, hat on, spot a weld, Now, as with all my welding, I've got it set hot enough that a single tack will burn all the way through both pieces of metal, make a weld all the way through. Okay, that's roughly where we want it.
So with this one, you're going to stabilise the entire piece in there?
Yes, because it's not just a straight run, we've got to work all the way around. So we've got to get the whole lot sitting where we want it and get him in place. So it's going to be one of those things. It's going to, I've got a bigger gap there than what I really want. What am I going to do with that? So if we look in here, thought I had this better than that. We're touching just around the corner here, but we've got a good 1/8 of an inch there. So let's tuck that behind. That will pull up. So yeah, we're going to have to close that up a bit better. So I'm going to have to trim that a little bit through there. This end here sits pretty good. So we might just put a tack in this end to hold it up. And then we'll come back to the other end and do a little bit of trimming. We'll do a little bit of measuring and a bit of trimming. Okay, that's stuck him in there. So I've clearly cut too much off one piece or another. But we'll check that out. Well, that actually says some Rob has cut way too much material off this top edge. That is going to be a problem, guys. That's going to be a major problem. So we're going to have to weld a strip in there, not looking forward to that one little bit. So this end here is pretty good. Might just get a little bit more weld up in this end to stabilise it. How did I manage that? Always the risk when you're doing a little bit of custom work that you're going to have something that doesn't quite want to play the game, and today we've got that. So I think if I can get a little tack in this corner up here, that'll hold this up where we want it. That one might be a temporary permanent in there. We'll just see how we go, but I'll just check that depth. So what have we got? That's sitting close there. That's touching that end. Not quite down where we want it. Okay, that'll be all right, near enough. So what we'll do, we'll get him stabilised as much as we can. I'm just going to have to cut a little strip of metal and put in there. Not ideal, but it's what we've got, and it's what we're going to have to work with. Trouble with custom cars, sometimes you cut too much off. Today is one of those times. Now, I don't mind admitting, guys, that sometimes I do cut way too much off, get a bit excited, and things don't go according to plan, but it is only metal. There's always going to be a solution. Now, the reality of what we're doing is we're making a video. We could actually just have ignored all that. I could have welded a piece in there and not told you about it, ground it all off and come back and said, oh wow, look at how good a job I've done at this. But it's never like that. So we will always give you what happens as it happens, and that way if you're at home faced with something like this and you have a problem, just understand that I have problems as well, and between us we can make it all work.
So what you're saying is you're human.
Yep. I am fallible. I even had a cold virus or a flu virus, and I think yesterday where I didn't come to work was probably still recovering from that. When the body says, no, we don't want to go and play games down that cold shed. In fact, we've had enough of your shenanigans, Rob Teal. Sit in front of the lounge, in front of the fire all day. Got a little bit of a gap here in the middle, so we'll just take a few precautions to make that work. Just shorter little welds, and I've got a little bit of an overlap here, so we might try something tricky. If we put a bit of weld on this side of this tack here, once that cools, because there's a tiny gap there, we'll lift this in here a little bit maybe. So we might just do a little bit of a weld rather than a tack. So hopefully that'll cool. Use this as a fulcrum, lift this area in here a little bit, and we can just slide this piece in. See how we go. It's just perched on here.
Could you do it on the other side as well?
I can do that there.
Yeah.
That could help, yeah. Might want something in there just to open that up a little bit. Start digging into our little bag of tricks here, guys. This is a handy tool for just opening up where you're welding. You can usually wriggle it through on an angle and get it to cut. Because the blade's so fine, you can usually just weld the gap up without any dramas. That'll work now. Now, the more bits of zap we have holding two pieces together, the more stable it's going to become. Righto. pretty good there. There. That's pretty good there. We've got a bit of a gap to fill here, so it's just going to be make a few bridges and fill between them. It's still a little bit high on this top piece. Okay, so we can get a little bit in here, hold it together.
It's not going to work.
Hey, earth leg come off. Ah, thank you. Maybe if we hook that over that, it'll be more secure. Okay, we'll go with about there. Now, because of the current I'm using, I've got to break the arc to be able to fill a gap. Otherwise it'll just melt the piece away on the top. Aiming for full penetration on a single tap every time. Get another one just in here. Okay. I've got a situation where I've just rolled this edge in a little bit too far, but I've created a radius on the top here as well. So hitting it just in here will open that back out a little bit. It's the trouble with one-sided work. Just got to be keeping an eye on everything you're doing. Righto, I can get a bit of weld just in the corner there now. Those two bits stabilised there, and we can start working this radius in here as well. Okay, we can get a weld just about there now. Little bit by little bit, we'll get him to come around and play the game. Now by tapping this way, we're shrinking this metal around this edge here. So it's just a matter of working it little bit by little bit until we get him to sit down flush with our other piece. A little bit of a low spot just coming in this corner here, but well within the realms of what Phil is going to be able to do without any dramas at all. Once again, bunching the metal up, you are going to change the shape a little bit. So. Okay, we can get a spot in just in there.
Considering how that piece of corner metal has come from straight. How thin would that corner be by now?
It's not. We've shaped it. We've actually made the metal more dense in a lot of places. So yes, we have stretched out the very edge of it, but it won't be by much. We've also made this area in here more dense. So it's a bit of give and take, but it's certainly not to the point of being in danger of tearing or anything like that on such a small fold.
That was what I was curious about, whether it might tear.
No. If we were looking at maybe trying to get 12-15 millimeters to roll around like that, we would be risking a tear in the corner. But for what we're doing here, no, it's all pretty good. Nothing really to worry about. So just got to remember where I was going to put my little tack. It was just in there. So this whole job is just going to be a little bit by little bit, fitting it as we go. We can get another one in the middle there too. Bit of weld, bit of fitting, bit of weld, bit of fitting. We've got a little bit of heat from the weld just sort of sitting here. It's warm. It's not hot, but it is warm. So that's going to help us with shaping our piece of metal as well. So. You know, I reckon that's nearly good enough. It's not quite flush, but because of the shape here and we've got that weld in there, I think the radius is really nice. So we might just leave it alone, a little bit more of a tap. I'm just going to go in and get a few welds around there and we'll just call that corner as being how we want it. Bit of a grind and a filler, skimmer filler, you'd never know. We'd be thinking that Mr. GMH had done this themselves. Now I always like to weld back from corners. I really hate welding corners. It's just so easy to grind too much metal off when you've got a welded corner and have the issue with it wanting to fracture later on, things like that. So I will always roll my metal around the corner and weld on the flat. Just grind it back smooth. You know you're not in any danger of your weld failing. Now we've got a panel that we've opened up and used a cardboard template for reference, and we've got a panel we've made to fit in there from a cardboard template for reference, and we haven't done too bad really. It fits pretty good. Another little gap in the corner, but it's not enough to worry about. A few little zaps to make a bridge. That stabilises the corner. Now we can work this corner in here around to match. So far, so good. Alright, we're touching there, we're lined up there, so I can get a tack in there, and we're lined up just in there. So I'll tack both of those, and then we've just got this little bit in the corner here to work, and we'll have him. So this corner's worked a lot easier than the other end. Just sconned myself with the earmuffs. So just keep an eye on what you're doing and think about what's happening to the metal as you're doing it. Where we want the pressure to hit with the hammer, whether we've got it angling it down a little bit to tuck this end in here, or whether we're hitting the fold on the corner up here to try and squash up some of this metal in here. So I've got it fitting pretty well now. We can just get a little bit of weld in that corner, and we'll say we're just about there for that part. Right, he's not going anywhere. Now we're going to have to start looking at this top edge, working out what we're going to do with that, where we've got this gap.
Oh, Robert.
Yes, not entirely certain how I made that happen, but I've managed it. Sad face. Not to worry, it's only a piece of metal, guys. Righto. What we're going to do is start marking, I would say, 7140. We go about there, 20, 380. So we got 7140. What do I have after that? 220. Just getting some reference marks on here. One there. What we're going to do is just check the depth at each of these to make sure we don't have a bit of a bulge here. I've tapped this around a lot of times and it's been lifted up and dropped down and all sorts of things. That's pretty much the same. Come back to this one. Okay, that's high there, so we can bring you down. So we know that this one in here was pretty good, so if we spot him just in there, we'll get a tack in here tying this one, and then we'll start working this area out here. We'll just build a little bridge. I prefer to let gravity work for me, so if you're working on the top piece, put a couple of zaps on there, make a little bit of a stalactite, comes down and it'll bridge the gap. Easy peasy.
So wait, you're going to build a bridge and get over it?
Get over the fact that I've cut too much metal out here and come back to the land of the living and just fix my problem. So yes, build a bridge and get over it. That'll work. Get a little tack just in there, I think. This side I'm really happy with. Got a little bit of a distortion in this panel here from putting those pressings into it, but if we tack at either side, then we can get the piece where the bit of a lump is to tap down. It'll work really nice. Oh, that sounds like it's part of the car, doesn't it? It's actually a little bit overlapped there. I might just poke my saw in there and rip that line. Little gap there is not going to worry anything. We can make that work. We're stabilised with a few tacks. There's no harm in shooting a little bit of weld into it in places. That's all going to work. Okay, so we'll come back over here and have a look at this spot. Second line in. Now we've got to come down, look at that, at least 3 millimetres there, 1/8 of an inch. So this is high. We'll give him a bit of a tappy tap. And look at that, that's brought it down to exactly where we want it. So that gap is suddenly now not looking so formidable. Come into. And we're actually a little bit low here, so we've got to prise that up a little bit. So, yeah. So that's the first one in. That's the first one in. That's good. Second one out here. Oh no, measuring on the wrong mark. And that's really good too. You know what? At that distance, I'm going to weld that up. It's a little bit wider than I would normally like, but what we're going to do is build a series of bridges to stabilise it, and then we'll come back and weld in the gaps between it. This is where we really need a bit of patience for this sort of work. And you muck up like this, it's not the end of the world. You've got to come up with a solution. So by building little bridges across, like we've done just there, and we're just going to keep filling them in between them. So what we'll do is we'll do them yay far apart, get a series of them across the panel, come back and halve your distance, put some in the middle, and then come back and halve that distance. And then it's going to be stable enough that you can start welding the spots between them, because the bridges are going to hold your two pieces of metal apart. So this will all work. So we just want to get that tacked in there. I've got a little bridge there. Actually got this top piece rolled in a little bit here. That's going to be a bit tricky to correct. But we might just try putting something in there and levering it out a bit to flush it up a little bit. We can get a tack in the middle here. Okay, that's tying that together. Got a little piece of scrap metal. Will fit into the gap. Now, even an off-cut of metal is a sheet metal shaping tool. So now we've brought these edges close to being in line. Still a little bit low in the middle there.
So hang on a sec. How are you doing that?
I'm using, this is the dolly, and I'm just resting it on my finger and putting some weight up on there, and then I'm jarring the corner. And I'm just letting the molecules in the metal know I want them to move a little bit and come this way a bit. So once they know what you want, they should be agreeable. The other thing we could do is just put a right angle fold in the end of this, and then we could just pull on it at the same time that we're hitting our piece of metal. But that's got it pretty good, guys. I'm pretty happy with that. I should actually say guys and gals. Google tells me 11.2% of you guys are gals. Thanks, girls. Really appreciate it. I think we're going to be doing a similar thing, dragging this top piece out a little bit. We've got a bit in the corner that's not too bad. Yeah, that's about as big a gap as I'd be wanting to weld, but it's only the end of it, so we can live with that. And we're going to have to work this out a little bit as well. Or do we?
So why didn't you weld those two pieces together?
Haven't got around to it. Okay, I'll do it. Don't worry. I won't forget. I'll come back. I haven't got around to it. I haven't forgotten.
I was curious as to why that weld wasn't...
Because I wanted to join it to the bottom bit. I was up to that bit.
But if you'd done the two of them together and welded it down from there, wouldn't it have stabilised the whole corner?
You are right, it would have. But we would have had too much heat for one job. So what we've done now is I've pushed this to the extent of how far I want to go on as much weld for now. When this cools a bit, we can weld that little split up there. That won't matter. And that's just where I cut the panel originally before I shaped this corner around and gave myself a little bit of spare material to work with later. So that's where we're at. But yes, it could have been done either way. We could have welded that one first and then bridged it across. I just chose to bridge it across.
You wouldn't have done it all in one go?
No. I would have let it cool down in between, just because of the size of that gap. If it had been butted together, I would have been tempted to just weld the two and let it flow across and bind both pieces together. But because there's that gap on the bottom, I didn't want to push it that far. New special tool. Righto. Right, this is really good here in the middle. Now we've got a little bit of a bump in the outer skin, this original Holden part. So if we tack that either side of that, we can come back and just work the high spot down into the join. Righto. So, where is he? Just in there, wasn't it? Yeah. And that's nice there now. Right, a few more spots. We're starting to wear it down and get it how we want it. Righto. Happy with all the bottom area. We can start welding that together anytime we want now, but I really would like to just work this top area up here where it's not quite sitting how I want it and get that gap filled in a little bit. I've added a handle onto the new special tool. That's going to make that a bit easier to do this end. Alright, that's nice. That's all going to fit in there. Now as far as the welding goes, guys, it's just the same as what we've shown you before. I can see I'm going to have at least an hour or so of welding and tapping and things like this. So what we might do is, if you guys leave me to it, I'll just hop in and just keep working away on this. We'll get it all welded up, but I'll leave these top corners out, and then we'll come back, we'll have a look at shaping them around and getting them how we want them. get them glued in, and then it's just a matter of a grind, and we've got this part done. So it's coming along really nicely. I'm really happy with it. It's exactly what I wanted. So don't be afraid to try and make something different or custom. It's just a matter of thinking the process through in your head, coming up with a few ideas, and then, like I say, we've made a few special tools to make this one happen. We've experimented a bit, but we've come up with a unique car panel that's ours and ours alone.
What about the legalities of doing modified panels?
Doesn't affect it. You don't have to have an engineer certificate for this. You're only changing the car cosmetically. If you're changing the car structurally, yes, you would have to. If you're going to lower the roof or put the doors swinging a different way or something like that. But this is just purely cosmetic. Right, there is no laws governing what we are doing apart from the illumination of the number plate. And we've got a few things with the number plate that you must have it visible from a height of 1200 millimetres, so 4 feet, from 4.5 metres behind the car. You must be able to read the full number plate from straight behind the car and a 45-degree angle on each side. That is the law. We're not going to affect that because our number plate's not far enough into the car that the sides here are going to stop it from that angle, and from straight behind it's still perfectly legal. So things to bear in mind. There are a few little things like that, but we don't have to go and get an engineer certificate just because we've made a number plate recessed in a tailgate. Didn't have for some reason. I forgot, right? Maybe just wants to join the conversation. It's a gas going through somewhere. Well, I've got it all welded up. I've just spent an hour and a half with the hot glue gun, put a bit of hot snot around everywhere, and the big gap just made little bridges across the gaps, worked from the bridges, and I only just welded probably 6mm at a time, 1/4 of an inch, and just kept working my way across there. So that's what took a big heap at the time, was getting this wide gap welded together. But if you come around and have a look at it, it's turned out pretty well. So we've got a nice big fat weld through there, but we haven't pumped a lot of heat into it. So we've still got paint here that's not burnt, and you can see that's down below it. There's only a little bit of a paint line there, but when we looked at the other end, where it was actually butted together, we really haven't put any more heat into the weld than what we would have on the normal situation where it was butted together. So we've got a couple of little holes that I've welded up in the middle where the badge used to be. There's those two there, so that can grind up nice. So all I've got left to do is grind this weld, and we're pretty much ready to start prepping it for primer. But first of all, we'll just get these two little corners to sit in. This side, coincidentally, pretty much landed on the money, so there's not much left to be done on that. So we'll just grab the hammer and tap that around. The other side, I'm going to have to cut it a little bit, fold one piece down, trim it, and then roll the edge in there. But now that we can't get our hand inside it, it's however it turns out. Working from one side is what we've got, and we've just got to live with that. But it should all work. So that's really nice. Like, I'm going to go with that. We've got a little bit of a gap in the corner, but we can just fill that with weld. There's no real dramas in there. We've just sort of, it's actually less of a split than what we had with our wide gap in there. So once we fill that with weld, it'll just grind off and look like natural steel all the way around. The other end I'm looking at, and it's got this little bit of a tab here. It wants trimming a bit, but I think I'm going to saw it straight up, fold this piece down, cut the end of it off, and then start rolling this side, because we've got to come in to about this line here. So there's about 1/4 of an inch, 6mm, 8mm there we've got to roll around. So we'll just trim that first, and then we'll see what we can do with this one. Not going to like that. Snippers will work better for that. Right, that's got that rolled around, looking pretty much the shape I wanted. I wanted to keep this little point in the corner here. It runs down into that little style line. We've got a gap in the corner. Just tap this up a little bit in here. Just eyeballing a bit of a straight line through there. And that's knocked our little piece off that I put. Oh, it's bent it in. See if we can drag him back. And it looks like we might have to cut a piece and put into that corner. Just going to get the little saw and cut along that line a bit.
It's fast, isn't it?
Yep. Alright, there's a tiny little overlap there. We've got rid of that. It's sitting together fairly well. I'm thinking that piece I folded down is just going to want to hide in there and not do what we want it to. I'll try and drag it out, but I think we're going to be better off to just cut it off. It's just going to be painful, I think. Doesn't want to play the game at all. Just put a spot of weld in the corner of it. It's a little bit too hot. Okay, that's got that glued in there. Just got a bit in the corner to fill in, but I'll let that cool right down. I've got another little spot just in there I haven't welded yet too that needs a little bit of a zap in. But we might have a look at the other end while we're letting that piece cool down. You ready? Okay, we'll let that one cool down a bit. Now it's going to have to wait for a little while. Waiting, waiting, waiting. Just got to be patient with these things. Just got to be patient.
There's a fair bit of warmth out there, isn't there?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Alright, we'll weld a bit more on this end. Okay, let that one cool down. You can
hold
your...
my hand on it now.
Well, it must be ready for weld. So just got a little bit left in the corner on that one. Yeah, it's still a little bit too hot there. So we've got a little bit down in here to go. The corner we've got to do, and that piece there yet. Righto. Bit more hot snot.
And now what do we tell the people at home?
What's that?
Don't trip over the cords.
Don't trip over the cords, no. Is that end ready?
Is this end ready?
Yeah. Have you checked it out?
Oh, it's nice and warm.
Oh, there you go. So we can weld that one a bit more then.
Yeah.
I think we got that one. Just give this a little bit more on this end to cool down.
There's quite a big weld on the corner there, isn't it?
Yeah, well that'll just grind into the shape I want it, so I'm not worried about that. I just wanted the penetration in behind to actually have enough material there once it's ground off to just finish into the metal. Well, is it or isn't it?
It's quite warm, but I can hold my hand on it.
Oh, well, maybe we'll put a bit more in it then. Deb reckons it's ready. Just trying to build enough weld that it's building on the inside as well as on the outside, so that once I grind it down I'm not going to be in danger of cutting through the weld. So we'll give that a few minutes and we can get that last little bit done. Then the only thing left to do is I want this line to continue off the edge of the panel, so we've got to support that, and I'm hoping to just do it in the vise and get a couple of hammers and just put this little top line into the edge there. We've got that to each end, and previously we drilled holes through the frame, so it should just collapse in and we should just be able to pull it down and stretch the metal to how we want it to. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Sometimes this stuff wants to come back and just do something that you're not expecting, but today I'm hoping we'll get it under control. Like it wants to be this shape. It's all gone into place, it's all fitted together, and we've welded it up pretty well. So I'm of the opinion the Ute wants this to happen. So.
I'm pretty sure it didn't want a feral pig to run into the front of it.
No, I don't think it wanted that at all. Righto, last little bit done. Might just put a spot just there. Just in case there was a tiny pinhole there. I don't think there was, but it was just better to be safe than sorry.
you going to do it now?
That's what I'm hoping.
Awesome.
That's what I'm hoping. I think we want about that much. We want one of them and one of them where we can reach it.
You've got a cord on the bench.
Yeah, maybe I'll move that.
Not best practice.
Yeah, let's not squitch a cord and zap ourselves. And put it all over YouTube. So we want that. I think I need some help here. What I might use, a little bench can be brought in and holden-y part. To help out a fellow holden. Right, so that's the piece we want down. That's about where we want it that way.
Thank you.
Right. This top line's got a fade in there, but it's going to be done with a bit of filler, I'd say. Okay, one end. Bit of a dent I've put in it before when we were playing with it on the car. You can actually just weld a tab onto that and just pull that up, and I might do that yet, just to get this crease to run a little bit better into there. We can just get a little bit of a crease that we can come back to later. I would say one of my little studs with my stud gun, spot welded that right on where this point runs into there. We can just lift that and make that a tiny bit better. So that's pretty good. I think we can live with that.
Divot just in there.
Hey? Yeah, that's from where we were tapping that recess into it, but a little bit just in that. But I actually want this line to fade smooth there, so these actually want filling a little bit because they're a little bit deep. And so that'll smooth across there. And we've just got to get this crease to stand up, but we can't come back inside the tailgate anymore, so it's either fill it or we just pull it back with the stud, but I'll go with pulling it back with the stud. So we've just got a little bit of weld on the back. We're ready for a grind. It's hard to say whether I've got that in far enough or not. I think we've still got a little bit of a high spot just in there on the frame. just fixed it. Just where the frame's poking up from underneath it, it's pushing out on the outside panel. So anyway, lift that with the stud, bit of a grind and bit of a smooth, and a blind man would be glad to see it.
So there should be a bit of panel beating done on the inside as well.
Yeah, I'm not going to worry about that. This is a working car, not a show car. Done?
Yep. And that's just getting off the paint so you can weld it.
Yep. Bit of hot glue. And then we're ready for a big long grind and we're done. Oh, we've got no yarth. Now we've got a yarth. Now being the frame, we can pour a bit of heat in there. We run very little risk of it distorting in here. So I'll let that cool down before I weld that end hole, but I can go and do the other end. Okay, that one done. Done. Right, the dog's dinner. We might as well grab the stud gun out and lift that line up a little bit while we're at it.
It's a handy bench.
Yep, handy goss bench. That's lifted him up right where we wanted it. What we might do, that will do us. No, that one broke. Normally they twist off.
Just a handy dandy feature of the car.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I reckon if you guys give me half, 3/4 of an hour or so, I'll rip around this with the grinder and get it looking as good as it's going to look. And then if you come back then, we'll just have a bit of a look at it together and see how she turned out. But I am super happy with this. This is exactly what I had in mind when I started this project. So we'll see you guys in a little bit and we'll have a look at how it turns out. Well guys, I am so happy to have this done. I've just been grinding, I'm thinking, for an hour and a half. I have got grinder sparks all down my shirt, down my back, my sweat, it's stuck to me everywhere. As soon as this is done, I'm going to bolt for home, have a shower and get some clean clothes on. But check it out. Here's our tailgate. For a panel that we made from a cardboard template, we opened up the tailgate with a cardboard template, sat the two together and welded it in with a butt weld. I've got 2 or 3 little spots. I've got a couple of spots of porosity I've got to weld. I've just noticed a little pinhole over here where I've missed the weld, just on the edge there. But the rest of it has butted in so nice. It's welded up a treat. We have added a style line all the way across the tailgate from one side to the other. We have added a feature to put the little lion onto. This is just super great. I'm just can't tell you how happy I am. So glad you guys have shared this with me. Thank you so much for being part of our channel and part of our online community. Love your comments, keep them coming, and I will ask the question of you guys now. I've seen a lot of this generation, well, the next generation of this, that has this style of opening in the tailgate on the HSV utes. Some of them have got black in the background around the license plate. Some of them have got body colour. If you've got a preference, flick it down there in the comments, and we're just going to go with what's most popular. It can be your choice, guys, as to how we paint it. And there's going to be a few other things once we get into the paint that we'll actually be throwing a few questions out, and we'll go with the most popular responses there. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.